Ačiū. Tai sveiki visi. Labai smagu čia būti tiek kaip listinguojamos bendrovės atstovai, tiek kaip ir mėgėjų investuotojai. Tai kadangi šiandien mano kolegos anglų kalba, lietuvių kalba šiek tiek šlubuoja, tai mes angliškai padarysim pristatymą. Okay, so there's two of us from Ignitis today. Myself, Jonas Rimavičius, I'm CFO of the group, and Thierry Aelens here, he's CEO of Ignitis Renewables. And today we will present to you, highlights of Ignitis Group strategy with a focus on green generation segment and investor returns. So first, let me briefly introduce who we are as Ignitis Group. So we are a renewables-focused integrated utility. What it means is that renewables are at the core of our strategy, but we approach it from an integrated perspective, meaning that we not only do the renewable generation, but we also make sure that there is enough flexibility in the energy system, the networks are capable to deliver all that renewable energy, and the customers are happy once they get that renewable energy. And that is very much in line with our purpose of creating a 100% green and secure energy ecosystem. And in order to deliver that purpose, we have set two main targets. One is to increase our green generation capacity to between 4 and 5 gigawatts by 2030. And the second one is to reach net zero emissions by between 2040 to 2050. When delivering these targets, we will utilize the competitive advantages of our integrated business model, which benefits from the largest customer base in the Baltics, the largest energy storage facility in the Baltics, the largest network in the Baltics, and the largest energy hub in the Baltics. So how our business model actually works. So we have 4 business segments: green generation, networks, customers and solutions, and reserve capacities. In terms of EBITDA, the largest one is green generation, which accounts for more than 50% of our business, and last year, out of 469 million euros, it accounted for 53% of that. The second largest is networks, which accounts for 1/3 of EBITDA. This is a very stable, fully regulated business, which adds to our financial capacity to deliver all those green generation targets. So together, networks and green generation, this is 90% of our EBITDA. So this is the core of the business. The third segment is customers and solutions. Even though it accounts for only 3% of the business, it's extremely important to us because it holds the largest electricity customer base in the Baltics of 1.4 million. Why it's important? It's because when we build new green generation capacities, we already have a customer base where to match that electricity, where to sell it. And this is very big competitive advantage, and no one else has it to such extent. And the fourth one is reserve capacities, 7% of EBITDA, relatively small segment, but very stable with all costs covered by the regulation. And with this, I pass the word to Thierry to focus on our largest segment, green generation.
Thank you, Jonas. So green generation, what are we focusing on? Jonas said 4 to 5 gigawatt. We assume that the world will be powered by renewables in a few years. It's dictated by the EU directive, the Repower EU plan, the net zero targets. And so if you assume that we will be powered by renewable, you need a stable supply of renewable. So we're focusing on the technologies that bring that stability to the network and to the customers. And that's mainly offshore wind, which is the most baseload compatible, the most grid-friendly generation from all renewables with the most constant supply. hybrid. It's basically the combination of onshore wind, solar, and batteries. And then the flexible part, because we will be able to manage the fluctuations in order to have that constant supply. We are focusing on our core markets, of course, but don't forget that one of our biggest change in the energy market here in Lithuania is the synchronization that will happen in a few years. We'll be connected to Central Europe network, which is new for us, and basically it opens new perspective. Therefore, we are looking beyond the borders of our current markets just to see if we find the right investment opportunities. What is our strategy based on? It's basically based on studies from several sources which are saying that any investment, you need first to think that every investment we make now has a lifetime which will take us beyond 2050. That means what we invest now is part of the transition to net zero because they have those long lifetimes, those generation assets. In the world of net zero, there's a lot of countries which are not capable of auto-supplying themselves. They do not have the resources. So basically, for once, the Baltic states are extremely lucky. We are sitting on a huge potential, large land mass, access to the sea, good resources, small population, relatively small demand, even if Lithuania has a higher demand than its neighbors. But basically, we will become export countries. And you can see from the map who are the guys who will need the most energy. In our region, which is the 4 markets we have talked about, there is a lot of opportunities. You see the targets from each countries. Those targets are not always 100% the one which have been publicized because it changes all the time. In the current world, which is dictated also by the geopolitical situation, a lot of countries have revised their targets. So we are focusing on the targets which we think are reasonable. And you see the numbers. Poland is a huge market, but the other countries have a lot of potential. If you see how we are growing, we are saying that we will double our capacity by 26, and we will quadruple our capacity by 2030. So we are focusing, as I said, on the generation, which will allow us to give a constant and secure supply of independent energy coming out of Lithuania. So it's offshore, first tender for offshore. Lithuania is the first in the Baltic to launch an offshore tender. The first one is in 2 weeks, and we'll do our best to be successful. Hybrid, as I said, by combining different technologies, you are basically working against the intermittency of those generation assets, and you are, with the technological solution, flattening out that generation so that you have that constant supply. Offshore wind needs that a lot less. If you look at the capacity factor of offshore wind, it's above 40%, meaning that an offshore wind farm will generate electricity about 80 or 90% of the time. Don't confuse capacity factor and the number of hours it runs per year. And then the flexibility, of course, it's different things. Batteries. Batteries is very short-term storage, fast response, auxiliary service, keeping the voltage and the frequency stable on the network. Our biggest asset, the pump storage hydro in Kruonis, that most of you know, huge capacity of storage for medium term. It's a lot of cycles per year, but it stabilizes the network. And then what you call P2X. P2X is basically when you have an overshot at generation, you don't want to throw away that electricity or give it to neighboring countries for no money. So basically, when nobody is willing to give you the right amount for your electrons, you transform it in something else. You transform it in something else that you will be using when there is no wind and no sun. Instead of importing very expensive electricity, don't have to remind you how much we've paid sometimes in the last month for electricity imported to Lithuania, we will be able to generate a lot cheaper with our own transformed electrons. Then you see offshore wind, the timeline. We have 2 auctions in Lithuania, which are before our neighbors. The first one is in July, the other one is at the end of the year. Estonia they don't have a solution for the offtake. Therefore, they are basically proposing seabed auctions. So they will ask people who want concessions. In the meantime, Latvia and Estonia are working on solutions how to evacuate their power. And then you see that Latvia and Estonia have applied by the EU for a joint auction. They have committed only to 500 megawatt per country, where we have committed to 1.4 by 2030. And then if you look at the potential of Baltics and Poland, you see that Poland has a huge potential, but they also have a huge demand. Now, how does that work? And here it's a little bit explained. You see the fluctuations, and that's exactly, I think, the pointer. Is it the red button? Yeah, probably here.
No, there's a...
Okay, there's no pointer. But you can see it here. Basically, you flatten the curve, and you are capable then of giving that constant generation. And then Kruonis, most of you know that asset, but a lot of people don't know exactly how it works. Basically, Kruonis is 2 basins. We pump electricity up when there is too much, and we give it back when there is too little. It was not designed in the past to cope with a very flexible market powered by renewables, because the intermittency is a lot higher, and therefore we are enhancing the flexibility capacity by adding a 5th line, but a 5th line which is top-notch technology, which is allowing us to basically adapt the power output that we are going to give. I'm not going to say to the megawatt, but with a very high level of flexibility. And then power to X, just to explain a little bit how it works. A lot of products are based basically on carbon. So if you have hydrogen and carbon and you combine it in the right way, in the right chemical processes, you can produce a lot of things. So with electrolysis, you take cheap electricity that nobody wants, transform it in hydrogen, combine it with the right amount of carbon molecules, and you can produce either ammonia, which is one of the most common traded commodity, and especially for fertilizers, synthetic methane, or e-methanol. E-methanol can be used for plastic production, but can also be used as a fuel. You can burn it in almost any internal combustion engine with a little bit of tweaking. It can replace basically gasoline. And our power offtake capabilities, as Jonas was saying, that's one of our biggest advantage. We are capable of absorbing a lot of generation because Lithuania was importing 70% of electricity in the past. This is not the target. The target in the future is to supply energy to other people. And how are we going to do that? If you don't have the right people, it's difficult to build a big business from scratch. So basically, we've decided to invest a lot in human capital, and we've been quite successful in the last 15 months. We have multiplied our human base by 4, and if you know people, very talented, looking for a job, we have 30 open positions for the moment. So applications welcome. And so now I give it back to Jonas because now it's numbers. So.
Yeah, so what these plans mean in terms of our financials. So over the next 4 years, we will invest between 2.2 and 2.8 billion euros. Majority of that, as Thierry presented, will go into green generation segment, around 55%. Another significant chunk, around 40%, will go into networks. And naturally, as a result, our EBITDA will grow by around 7 to 11% every year, and by 2026, will reach between 470 and 550 million euros, again, driven by green generation growth. Despite this heavy investment program, we remain committed to our financial discipline and strong investment-grade credit rating of BBB and above. At the same time, we also remain committed to leverage level of below 5 times net debt to adjusted EBITDA. And lastly, the most important bit, we will continue to grow our dividends by at least 3% every year, which means that an implied dividend yield of between 6 and 7%. So, with all this in mind, why you should consider investing in Ignitis? So first, we are renewables focused, and we will quadruple our installed capacity by 2030. Second, our integrated business model positions us very well to succeed in the energy transition by benefiting from the largest customer base, largest network, largest storage facility, and largest energy hub in the Baltics. Third, as you are all very much aware, Baltics is the leading region in EU in terms of GDP growth, but also in terms of expected renewable capacity growth. Fourth, we have a financial capacity to deliver that growth based on our strong balance sheet and BBB+ credit rating. Fifth, we are an ESG leader with a commitment to net zero emissions by 2040 to 2050. And our actions on the ESG front have already placed us among the top European utilities according to multiple ESG ratings. And last but not least, our shares offer attractive blend of yield and growth with a dividend yield of between 6 and 7% and EBITDA growth of 7 and 11%. And how that works in practice, so as you can see, last year our shares delivered 11% growth with 7% dividend yield on top, meaning the total shareholder return of 18%, 3 times more than the index. And you might ask whether the full potential has been reached. According to the analysts that follow our shares, clearly not. The average analyst target price is 28 euros per share, which is 40% above the current market price. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Taip, mes turime keletą parašytų klausimų ir jeigu norit šūktelti klausimą tiesiog iš salės, labai prašau tą daryti. Klausimai parašyti ir lietuviškai ir angliškai, tai aš gal tiesiog skaitysiu tą kalbą, kurie jie parašyti, o jūs nuspręskite, kuris atsakinės. Kaip vertinate savo galimybės laimėti vėjo jūrų jėgainių parko statymą Baltijos jūroje?
This is for you. No, so I mean, I will cover this one is regarding our success in the second offshore. So in offshore tenders. So we are quite quite comfortable with our chances. We know there's 2 bidders in the first one. We are one of them. So there's 50% chance that we will win.
Thierry, you would win. Yes, please.
Do we still need any other batteries and other assets to store the electricity once we have Kruonis?
Yes. What you need to look at, as I was saying, is the path to net zero. If you make prognosis on what Lithuania, to maintain its current economical activity, if you can transform the current primary energy needs of Lithuania into equivalent in electricity, we need to multiply by 4.5 our production of electricity in Lithuania. If you consider the average growth of the Baltics, we need to multiply by 6 our electrical production to cope with the growth. And that's to cover the needs of our raffinery in Mažeikiai, the guys who do fertilizers, the cement factory, all those people in the future, they won't be able to work with gas. They will need to use the green version of that product. And the only origin for that product is basically green electrons. Therefore, we will need to over-install in capacity. The over-installment in capacity means that you need to control, to master the flux of generation in order to have that constant supply. Some of those industrial processes need a constant supply. And that's where the integrated model that we have puts us at advantage. We are better placed probably than someone that does only generation or someone that does only storage. We are a little bit better placed in order to control the different pillars of the future green energy economy. No. Even at 250 cycles, which is its theoretical maximum, Kruonis provides only 25% of the need of electricity of Lithuania today. If you multiply by 6, it provides only About 25 divided by 6, or about 4 or 5%. It's a key, but it's for the storage on a 12 to 24-hour basis. Our problem is the 2-3 months basis. How to transform, okay, there's a lot of sun for the moment, it's not normal in Lithuania, but to transform all that sun energy into something we can use when there is no sun, that's the key, and that will not be done by Kronos.
Okay. When net billing will be introduced in Lithuania?
That's for you.
Well, we'll see when it will be introduced, but I mean, it makes perfect sense when you that you get the amount of euros when you generate, because you will generate during the cheaper hours when the sun is shining. And when you get it back during winter times, when the electricity is usually more expensive, it should be based on euro terms, because now it's based on I generated 5 megawatt hours, I take back 5, which is not fair for all the other users on the grid which are not generating, because they are effectively the ones who are covering that difference. So net billing, it's a matter of time.
When there will be the possibility for private individual to invest into, not to rent, Ignitis wind power station? Other options to be an owner of wind power station?
Yeah, so currently we tested the model of renting it. We are exploring the options of selling the part of the wind turbines, but it's still in the early phase, so not much to say it now.
Which non-Baltic countries do you see as the most likely candidates for importing Ignitis energy? Just by looking at the map, it seems that Poland has a lot better sea access to produce its own offshore wind energy and supply it for Central Europe than Lithuania. Why would it need to import energy from Baltic states?
Poland will take many, many years to transform. Poland has today huge CO2 footprint due to its intensive use of coal and lignite. That means Poland will be busy with its own self, transforming themselves to a green economy or a net zero economy for many, many, many years to come. So we have that huge potential. The Polish will use their potential for themselves. If we are fast enough, if we are innovative enough, if we are ingenious in what we are doing, we will be possible for us, the Baltic states, not only Lithuania, but also our neighbors, to take possession of the market, so that when the Polish people are finished with themselves and want to exploit the rest of their potential, we will already be there. So we need to move boldly and believe in ourselves and build the transmission capacity to go to Central Europe or bypass Poland. That means going further to the west. It's clear from the map that there is one country which is the most energy hungry in Europe. If you look at numbers, you can find it on the Economical Ministry of Germany. Germany for 2050 needs 3,000 terawatt hours of electricity equivalent in order to maintain its economic level. That's a number which is scary. It is 6 times their current energy consumption. I mean, just make the mathematics and you will see how scary that number is. I can tell you they could absorb all our potential without the blink of an eye. We just need to be fast.
Aš dėkoju Thierry Aelens, Ignitis renewables vadovas, ir Jonas Rimavičius, Ignitis grupės finansų vadovas ir valdybos narys.
Ačiū.